no, you're absolutely right. So, it's weird because for the past 6 months, I've been leading three fights, right? I've been leading a fight as a Jew, right? Because I live here as a Jewish person. I'm raising Jewish kids. My wife is Jewish. I'm also been leading a fight as an Israeli, right? I consider myself a diaspora within a diaspora, right? But I'm also leading a fight as a professor. A lot of the things that are happening offend me, not just as a Jew or Israeli, but as a professor. For me, as someone who's not religious, academic institutions are the most sacred, other than maybe the Supreme Court, the most sacred institutions in the land, because they're supposed to advance the truth, find out the truth through research, and keep the truth going through education. And I don't know exactly what can be done, but I do know that the only way to fight lies is with truth. Because if we try to fight lies from one narrative with lies from another narrative, it's just a race to the bottom, and we actually end up legitimizing their lies. So the only way to fight lies is with the truth, right? Like if you have one wacko saying the sky is green, but then five sane, decent individuals know the sky is blue, then the student will develop critical thinking and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't believe everyone. But what these people have done is push out through decades, push out the sane and decent individuals, right? So if you go, for example, on the Middle Eastern Institute at Columbia, they have a website with all of the people there. The one narrative that is not represented is Israel, is a Zionist narrative. Now, I'm not saying it should be the only narrative on campuses, but it should be there, right? Last I checked, Israel is in the Middle East. And what ends up happening, because academia, and I assume there's some professors here, academia, maybe an unknown secret is we hire our own. We say we love diversity, but they use a very, very thin definition of diversity, of an important, by the way, definition of diversity, including race, gender, sexual orientation, sexual identity. Those are important aspects of diversity, and that's a hill I'm willing to die on. But they forgot that diversity of thought is what academia is all about, right? I'm not saying it's one or the other. We can have both. And when you go on campus, and if you all think about how you developed critical thinking, how were you taught critical thinking? Well, it wasn't one class where a professor told you, here's how you do critical thinking, right? It was at least two professors in two different classes who said opposing things. You said in one class, in maybe econ, and they said something about the free market ideology, and that was very compelling. And then you said at a different class, and a professor told you about the problems of free market ideology. You're like, that's also compelling. And then you sat in your dorm room or you had a drink with a friend and you talked about it. And you realize these are two truths. And you need to figure out what do you believe in? And you take the things that are compelling from each one. You cannot do that if you only hear one side of the story. And right now, if you enroll at Columbia University in the program for Middle Eastern Studies, you'll hear one side and you'll be indoctrinated in this one side. They are not academics, they're indoctrinators. And in fact, they will tell you, don't listen to the other side. They'll tell you when the other side says this, walk away, they're lying. So they don't want a discussion. I want a discussion. I want a student to talk. I don't teach Zionism, I teach negotiations, right? But I want a student that takes a class on Zionism and says, okay, this is interesting. I want them to also take a class that opposes Zionism and then sit down and think about it. But right now, we don't even have that.